Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horror Vision Presents Elements of Horror. My name is Sean.
I am Anthony of Avernus.
I'm John.
I am Justin.
I'm Missy.
I'm Ray.
I'm Tori.
And this is so awesome, ladies and gentlemen of the
Oh,
jury
man.
or the audience, as it is. This is the most people we've ever had on one of these, and what brought us all together is true Norwegian black metal.
Black metal.
So before we get into our double feature for Elements of Horror today, I just want to say, so Justin, you recently started your own podcast. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's kind of a combination. I kind of got it from you guys because I felt so comfortable being part of your guys' podcast just for one episode. But I was listening to your guys' podcast long before you asked me to be part of it. I felt so comfortable. I was like, why don't I just start my own? And a lot of it is, reviewing movies and music. And then I started going, okay, I love talking music and stuff with other musicians. I'm like, let me start introducing musicians on like some of them that are still, recording or touring, or ones that have given up on it. It's like, let me bring them in and start talking with them. So I had one successful interview with Bradley Palermo from a band called Femme Fatality that was originally a St. Louis band, but they moved to LA. And it was so good that I just ended up booking up the rest of June with other artists and stuff like that. So y'all get every Sunday, I'll get like an interview out, and then throughout the week, I'll kind of drop in and review two movies or an album in a movie, or something like that, just kind of change it up. But yeah, it's called Trailer Punk Podcast. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so folks, find it. It's on YouTube now, and it'll be coming to streamers like we were talking about soon, but you just look it up on YouTube. And then John, so I just listened to on my road trip, one of my two road trips recently, I listened to the first part of your trilogy of 1994 episodes that you and Miles did on this movie Saved My Life. Kudos on that. You got two more coming.
Yes, we do. We have a very special guest on our next one.
I heard that guy's a cunt. I don't know.
What?
It's me, Tori. It's me. I wouldn't badmouth somebody else like that.
Boo. No, I'm just
And everybody knows that the C, my middle initial is C. Everybody knows it's cunt. That's my middle name.
I
Or
thought it
so
was
I've been
Clarissa.
Well, if it's Clarissa, then you can smell my. Never mind.
I was behind you 100% on that statement, John.
But also, so moving histories. Did you guys drop another moving histories?
We had two on FX's Shogun this last month. We're taking a
Okay.
we're kind of all like on varying aspects of leave right now. I mean, because all three of us are professors. Well, Bob's a retired one, but still, we're kind of a little bit all over the place this time of year. I just finished grading 80 finals about a week ago. So I was on my staycation this last week. So like we're all kind of like a little bit scattered, but we're coming back. We've got two episodes of based on the Apple TV show Masters of Air that are coming.
Okay.
That's coming out in June. And yeah, we got more of this movie Saved My Life around the corner with more 1994 and more stuff on exploitation cinema this fall. This time it'll be Italian and Japanese. Like we did American exploitation recently, but it's going to be I decided, you know what, Miles, we need to do one on Italian exploitation. We need to do one on Japanese exploitation, especially the pink films, the films from Toei Studios about female biker gangs. We got to do that for our Japanese episode. So yeah, this movie Saved My Life and Moving Histories, all rad episodes out now, and even more radness coming right at you.
Right on. So listeners, look those up. I'm not like I'm a follower of both your guys' stuff, and it's quality shit. So I mean, well, that sounds like a kind of it's quality stuff. It's quality product, I would say, if I was dealing cocaine. But I'm not dealing cocaine because in Norway, the drug of choice is Satan. So, Missy, this is your pick. What are we talking about today? What two movies are we going to discuss?
Lords of Chaos, from Jonas Ackerland in 2018, and Until the Light Takes Us, the documentary about black metal.
So, Until the Light Takes Us, directed by Aaron, I'm not going to probably be able to pronounce this properly, but I'll take a shot at it. Eights and Audrey Ewell. And it should also be mentioned that Lords of Chaos is based on the book by Michael Moynihan and Diedrich Soderlund, which I've read and is it put me in a very, very dark place, by the way. It's an excellent, excellent book, but holy shit, man. Put me in a dark place. But so Missy, why did you pick these movies?
All right. I picked it because I saw Lords of Chaos for the first time last October. I watched it as part of my 31 Days of Halloween, and it completely like just captivated and fascinated me, and it left a mark. Since then, I've probably watched it at least 6 times. And each time I watch it, it sends me down some other rabbit hole where I either want to explore more music or it kind of turned my 31 Days of Horror last year into like metal horror for a bit. Because then I was watching like Death Chasm and Trick or Treat and Black Roses and all that kind of stuff. And I've wanted to discuss it with all of you guys since, but then there were different reasons that people were gone. So I've been waiting until everyone could come back because I wanted to do it with everyone.
And it should be said that the impetus for combining this was that Justin. So I started like a Joe Bob Friday Night Facebook Messenger thread between Missy, Ray, Justin, and myself because I know out of all of us, we're probably the ones that regularly try to catch Joe Bob on Friday night. And just it wasn't on a Friday; it was another night. Justin had mentioned he was going to double header these two, and Missy brought up, oh, I love Lords of Chaos, and I've been wanting to do that for Elements. I was like, oh, well, I've been looking for a chance to get Justin back, and why don't we just do both? Because they fit so well together. And here we are. So with this many people, it's hard to know how exactly to do this. So let's all bear with me.
Nice
Has
fight.
anybody here was this either? What, I guess what like Faust and those guys would be like, take armaments, take a mace, you take a sword, you take a dagger, and whoever's left standing, that's who talks. But
Black metal theme, Sean. Let's do it. Come on.
let's
Don't
do
be a
it.
poser.
That's true. Don't be a poser. Nay, there's no Scorpion's fucking badge on this jacket. Let me tell you. Although Rocky like a hurricane,
I feel bad for wearing pink to this right now, too, by the way.
I'll just say this. My favorite thing about Lords of Chaos, I saw it at Beyond Fest whenever it premiered. So I don't know if that was 2017, 2018. And there is a scene in there where Euronymous, played by one of the Rory Culkin, is sitting on the couch at his parents' house with his feet up on his father's lap. I think it's the best scene in the movie. And I think it just speaks volumes about what Jonas Ackerland's whole MO with this movie was to not only show like the truth and the lies, but to show like, hey, these guys, they're pretty much kids. So all the evil reputation, not that it's not earned, but they're still pretty much kids. And whether Euronymous was actually sitting with his feet up on his father's lap at some point after they started burning churches, I don't know. But I just feel like that is, to me, that is the crux of the entire movie. So was this anybody's first viewing of either of these? Okay.
Nope.
So also
I think
Tori
John
and
just had his
Anthony.
hand up, right?
No, he did. I'm saying Tori and Anthony, you guys are, more about the subject matter than anybody. Okay. By far. Right. So Justin, talk about seeing these for the first time and like, I don't know, just give us your read. Anything.
No, it's fine. No, it's cool. So I picked that out because I don't know, like I'll bounce from music to movies, It's my two passions. And I was like, oh, Lords of Chaos. So I've seen it before, and it was on sale digitally through Prime, because sometimes I'll be like, oh, is it on, Tubi? Is it on something, to stream? But I was like, oh, so I started checking the price, and it was on sale through Prime. So I was like, oh, I'll do a double feature. Like my brain just goes from I'm gonna watch this, what's gonna be the next one up? Okay, I'll watch Until the Light Takes Us. And when I just was like, hey, I was at work. I'm like, we stopped working for a bit. Hey, I'm watching this, blah, blah, blah. And you guys started talking about it. So I started kind of jotting down a few notes. And you were right about the scene where he's chilling out on the couch. And I think Jonas has an interesting way of doing things. I noticed from Spun, and what I noticed in this movie is that he balances this sort of like, we're badass, blah, blah, but then it kind of goes into something silly. Like there was one point, what stood out recently, because I rewatched it kind of like on and off this week to write down notes just in case I missed something. And when he opened up his record store, the postman comes and he goes, I have a delivery for Death Like Silence Productions. And he's like, Death Like Silence. And he's like, thank you, Mr. Postman. Like, it was such a funny balance of like, they'll do something like that they think is badass, but then it's something follows that silly. Like, even during their or when they're practicing in the basement, he's like naming off the members, and the drummer stands up and he gets his stick stuck up in the ceiling, and he's like, oh, and he pulls them down. So there's a lot of those balances where, yes, this is kind of like a black metal sort of I'm trying to find the right word, where it's like it's like like there's a myth to it. Also, like, hey, we're teenagers, we're just trying to have fun here, and it just escalated. So I mean, I see what you're coming from with that there's this balance that Jonas has when it comes to making movies, where it's dark, but sometimes it's got to be a little silly.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's like the most confident person in the world has self-doubt, right? So it's that thing, like their mythology precedes them.
Yes.
But they're also human beings.
They show you that right in the beginning too. I love the scene where he's dyeing his hair with his little sister. And like, these are all things that make them feel like real people.
And not just that, but he's using his mother's good towels to and there's one thing, if I know, is that my daughters love dyeing their hair. They always get hair dye on my wife's really good towels, and it's yeah. So I noticed that, and I was like, oh my god, he got hair dye on the good towels. So
I didn't catch that, but I just like the whole exchange where he's like, does it look evil? And she says, yeah, I like it. And for a second but then for a second he lets his mask drop. And he's like, really? You really think so? Like, he needed that reassurance, and that makes him feel
from his little sister.
Right.
You can see why all these guys hate this fucking movie. John, what was it like for you watching these? Like, I know you have some metal in your background. I don't know about, like, the true Norwegian stuff, but like, I don't know, talk about it.
Yeah, just full disclosure, I'm not a metalhead. I have metal bands that I like. If this was about punk, then it would be a completely different conversation. But just full disclosure, I'm not a metalhead. Let me tell you the first and last thing I wrote down. The first thing I wrote down 10 minutes into the film was, as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be in a black metal band. And the last thing I wrote down was, after Euronymous is brutally stabbed to death in this horrific, prolonged sequence, was, oh, well, at least Euronymous doesn't have to live the rest of his life like a schnook. So yeah, I mean, so the moral of the story here is that, yeah, this is like, essentially, this film shows us what Goodfellas showed us cinematically in the world outside of horror, which is that cinema has the power to make you look at people and spend time with people that are complete and utter dirt bags and want to be their friend. And Jonas Ackerman, he understands this perfectly well. And it inspired me to, um, after I watched it, just sort of that I'm a huge fan of Arrow Video. I got the copy that Anthony was just holding in his hand, just hold it up for everyone to see just how glorious that looks. I'm looking forward to that in the mail. And yeah, I became a converted fan of this film for that very reason. And another thing I'll just say, just for the sake of like really kind of passing the baton around the room here. I just from the point of view of like what this film is doing, the mechanics of it, I thought it was the opposite of The Witch, because this is what we would consider a historical film.
Mm-hmm.
Historical film, has like different subgenres like war, biopic, epic, so on and so forth. Yeah, this is a biopic. This is a historical film. This is a historical film that uses the conventions of horror in service of of writing its history. The Witch, as the polar opposite, is a horror film that uses the conventions of the historical film in service of its horror. So looking at this is a true dyed-in-the-wool horror film, but it is also a historical film at the same time. And the two genres cross-pollinating each other really, really work. And this is just, again, another example of it. And yeah, Missy, kudos. I thank you for recommending this. Loved it.
I'm glad. That's awesome that it was your first viewing, because my first viewing of this blew me away. And then I had seen the documentary right after, because as soon as I finished it, like Sean, Tori, and Anthony all said, watch it, watch it. So I watched it like as a double feature the first time I watched them. And then I did it again for this.
Now, Ray, you are probably this is in no way a slight, but you have probably the least background with metal, and especially like, there's people that are like, oh, I love fucking Pantera and Metallica and blah blah blah, and it's like, yeah, okay, that's like basically walking into a Pantera show with like a fucking
a
Miley
gay pride
Cyrus
flag.
shirt on, right? Like that's about the one-to-one that we're dealing with here, because this is like on a different level. And I mean, and there's stuff that purports to be super evil or whatever, but like there's so many things about these guys that like, you know, not only is it become a pissing contest of like, oh, you burned this church down, I'll murder somebody, but like the aesthetic of like, no, I want to record my guitar on the worst amp, on the worst guitar, and use those headphones as a microphone for my, like, literally, which leads to another great scene in the movie where it's Euronymous' ethos versus Varg's right later on. But Ray, what did you think about these movies watching? Like, I don't know, what's your take on this whole subculture and the way they're captured here?
Thank you. I was waiting for the question. Okay. Well, I'd seen both these films before, years ago. And yes, you are absolutely correct. I guess if there's a poser in this group, I'm the poser. Or at least
You're not a
am I?
poser.
No, you're not a
Am I?
poser.
Because I don't
No.
pretend to like
No,
anything.
you would be a
So
poser
you're
if
not.
you showed up with black metal face paint on and a mayhem shirt. You'd be a poser.
And a scorpions
Like,
patch.
you like what you like, You're not pretending. A poser is somebody that
Okay.
pretends to like something that he doesn't actually know anything about.
I guess if I'm anything, like I've always been, I described to somebody like a while back that I've always been like goth metalhead adjacent. Like for some reason, I've always had the friends, even though I don't listen to the music. I respect it. I think it's fine that somebody is into it and they love it and it connects to them. It just doesn't hit me in that way, and that's fine. But I had a completely different viewing watching these movies the second time around than I did the first time.
Okay.
Not to say that I like them, I still think they're fantastic. Uh, I really enjoyed the shit out of them the very first time I saw them. When I saw Before the Light Takes Us, I thought it was really interesting. I told people that I knew, like, hey, even if you're not into the music, like, check it out. It's just a fascinating documentary. Um, but this time around, I was watching it and I realized that the way that they constructed it and the way that it follows these three main people that they keep interviewing, Fenrez, Varg, and Frost, and the way that they were like cutting from one to the other, it felt like they were commenting on them. And so it has Fenrez, and it feels like this is just my opinion, but it feels like the filmmakers edited it in such a way that it feels like Fenrez ends up being like kind of this sad, tragic figure who is like the guy who seems to be the most authentic. Because there's that interview where he says to the woman, she says, it doesn't seem like you're like doing anything challenging and you're not doing anything offensive anymore. And he says, oh wow, that's interesting to me that you would say that, because I feel like this is the stuff I'm doing now. I feel like I'm challenging people more, and that everything I was doing before was just what I knew people wanted to hear, just the like evil and darkness, murder, and like he was like that was just a fucking like a play. It was just what you wanted to hear. And now I'm doing something that I feel like should offend people, should get them to be like, oh shit, what is he saying? And it wasn't hitting as well. Um, and then it kind of is diametrically opposing it against then cutting to Frost, cutting to Varg, and it makes them seem like it makes Frost seems like he's still playing a role. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that's what I saw. And it feels like they're commenting on him as like, look, he's still doing this. And like I'm not saying I'm not he may very well be invested in what he believes, but just in the way they constructed it, it seems like Fenriz is the one who's the most authentic and is just like, look, I understood what we were going for, and now it's I don't know, to him it feels passe. And like Varg is still like feels like lost in the trip that he was on to prove that he's not a poser anymore. And he's even, I mean, he's now in prison and now he's like the leader of like a white supremacist group and everything else. So it's like he's still this guy that's trying to prove like I'm the most fucking hardcore. You better believe it. At least that's the way it seems from the way it's constructed. And then like as you're watching Lords of Chaos, it makes Euronymous very much look like a showman.
Oh
Because
yeah.
even at the beginning, he's about here's how it looks evil, here's how it'll look. And like for most of the film, we get the thing of like, oh, he just showed up and took pictures dead after he committed suicide, and he then collected the skull pieces and gave it to the other guys in the band. And then we get that moment in the cafe where he's like, you can keep it. It's just
Chicken
and
bone.
it's just a chicken bone. And, and Morgan's not surprised, and he says, it's just like everything else for you goddamn show. And you're like, and then it cuts to that scene later on where he's like crying over Dead's corpse. So he knows he was a consummate showman. He was trying to sell. He was trying to make records sell. He was trying to put an image forward. I'm saying he didn't probably believe in some of it, but he was trying to sell. And he knew very well. He knew. I mean, whether this film is accurate or not, because it does say at the opening, based on truth and lies.
Yeah, and what actually happened.
And what actually happened.
If the yeah, and if the film is true and like he says, he was a consummate showman. He was like, he knew, he was smart enough to know the best way to get people into something is to go, you're not fucking cool enough to do this.
Yep.
Fuck you, poser. Because then then they go, they go like, "Oh shit, well I represent, I'm hardcore, you motherfucker," and then they want to be part of it. It makes Varg look like such a poser who's just trying so hard to be the best Norwegian metal that he can, and then he gets lost in it. He literally gets lost in that image. He literally gets lost and so caught up in it that he can't move forward. Yeah, I think they're both very, I guess, like, they're both excellent films. They're both good watches, and I recommended to people before, but like, because of the darkness of the documentary and the brutality and the violence of Lords of Chaos, I have warned people like, it's good, but be ready.
Yeah,
it's good.
Be ready.
So
I mean, I think it's really interesting, and I'll get some dirty looks for this probably from Tori and Anthony, but Varg did win the pissing contest. Varg did win the pissing contest by being the most badass, and it, essentially ruined his life to a degree. But I think, like at the beginning, when Euronymous is like counting off his accolades, where he's like, "I invented this, this new form of guitar." I don't think that's true at all. I don't like any of their music really, except for Varg's. I love early Burzum. I think it's fucking amazing, and I think Varg invented the sound, and I think Mayhem was really just the Motley Crue of the scene. I think they were more about image, and Dead wasn't, but Dead was so fucking hardcore he killed himself. So I mean, if you're that hardcore, great, but I mean, you're dead. So
actually, in a way, Dead killing himself makes him proves himself as kind of the
he wins.
most.
He wins, but what do you win?
He does win. He wins. He wins the contest because
he wins the
I won
contest.
at what cost?
I mean, it's basically
he's
like
so consumed by the darkness and like how life is fatalistic and without point that he's like,
yeah,
it's just time to die.
So, okay, here's what I want to do now. So, Anthony and Tori, you know more about all this than any of us. I want you guys to have a talk to you both, to talk to us, talk to yourselves, talk amongst yourselves, pretend we're not here, talk about all of this.
It's such a complicated history, though. That's the thing, is what, even with the documentary, I love the documentary. I love that movie so much. It doesn't convey entirely the complexity of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And, I fucking hate Lords of Chaos. Sorry, guys. I hate that movie.
Ooh.
It's okay.
I hated it less this second time than I did the first time. But I find biopics cheesy to begin with, and that's my fault. So I can't entirely hold that against the movie. But knowing as much as I do when I watch this, it's just so like eye rolling because they give off so much misinformation, and just the way like they paint Euronymous. He was a big piece of shit too. Like honestly, they all were. And they kind of make him a hero. And it's just very kind of biased in that aspect. And I feel like this movie did what like The Inquirer does. It just picks out the sensational parts and it highlights that. It's not highlighting these characters. They kind of brush over all these dudes. I wanted them to show like these were young like dudes. These were older teenagers / guys in their early 20s that were just bullied and came from bad homes and had this disillusionment about their culture dying to them, and the disillusionment of organized religion. I think we don't understand too how strict Norway is compared to us. And I think that movie like glazed over a lot of that and made it almost like an after school special to me. And to that, I don't like. I don't know. I feel like I'm the only one that shares this opinion about that movie.
That's your opinion is 100% valid. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, that's why we're all here. For
even
sure.
when I was doing even when I was doing a bit of research, I didn't realize there was like a whole underground scene like of like fanzines that was like going
Yeah.
on, and I learned a lot more
Slayer
when I
mag,
was,
man.
yeah, it was like the guy I can't think of his name.
Metallion.
Yeah, he was the chubbier kid. He's got
John
a
Christensen,
whole,
yeah.
yeah, he's got a whole other life of like, I was like, oh, they could have talked more about that kid where he just like he took him to a whole nother level with his photographs. Like that's why there's so many pictures and footage is because of that guy.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Like
yeah,
Metallion, when he put out an issue maybe like 10 years ago, a nice volume that he collected all the Slayer mags, and he brought it back out, and he did try to resurrect it about around the same time. But he was like the historian, because he was there with the Black Circle, but he was with so much more, and he kept track of it and wrote about it, and he interviewed these guys and tape traded and really kept that history alive for a long time. And they just glaze over. And again, just to me, Ockerland picked what he wanted to talk about and focused on that. And I don't like that. I don't like that, especially as a fan. Like, I got upset too, like when they show Per Olin's suicide note. I'm like, that wasn't a suicide note. He had like this long thing. I don't know, Anthony, what do you think, please?
Until the Light Takes Us is one of those documentaries. I remember when it came out 2010, I was watching it constantly, and when I found out it was finally available on Blu-ray, grabbed that, brought it home. And it's funny because I think by the time I did get it, I had seen the documentary so many times and been streaming so many different places. I never bothered to look at like the supplemental stuff that comes with it. There's like another additional 45 minutes with Varg. There's a pretty good
Fenris
section
breakdown.
that's on there as well, which has been floating around on YouTube forever, where it's just him and in front of a giant chalkboard breaking down every subgenre of metal there is. All that stuff is on there. It's amazing. But and here's the thing, I get shit about this too. I actually enjoy Varg's personality and the way he interviews, and he does it very well. It's very rehearsed though, and you can tell because he's had time to think about it. He's got plenty of time to sit down and think about it, and that's what makes him charming. But in that supplemental footage, they ask him, one of the last things they ask him, do you regret killing Euronymous? And he says, no, I've killed ants, I've killed insects, and then basically says they're the same thing, compares Euronymous' life to that of an insect that was unworthy of living beneath him. So you see all that hubris and all that bullshit that he's managed to conjure up throughout the years really shine through, and he's blatantly honest about it. For that, I give him credit. Great, you're at least you're honest. But to say that the guy is some kind of like and let me say this. It's just that I've heard other people who've watched the documentary or knew very little about that scene go in and say, oh, Varg is a very misunderstood guy. And I said, no, really dig in, because you're listening to the words of a murderer. This guy murdered someone in cold blood, and it's it's something he doesn't regret, and wears on his sleeve and uses to market himself to this day. And unfortunately, Burzum's music is now this really strange, whimsical background setting music you set onto a D&D game. It's very weird. It's not good.
I'm like, oh, I like those albums.
Yeah, I've got them all on vinyl. But
man, I love the dark synth.
Exactly. I got the limited edition die set and everything. But but then Lords of Chaos came out, and I personally have never read the book, but as was well versed in the history. Excuse me. My family, we all grew up listening to metal and whatnot, and my uncle got Kerrang in every month, and he got Hit Parader and all those other rock rags that would come in. And I remember that Kerrang coming in, and I read it, and actually it lists off a couple of other notable bands to like, hey, if you want to get into this, check these bands out also. And it named off like Impaled Nazarene from Poland, or actually, I'm sorry, from Finland. And they're another band that I love from that genre. And it was one of those things where, you know, they tried to keep it quote unquote pure, and only Norwegian stuff was what mattered. Basically, everything else was just poser BS. But I didn't see it that way because the genre was new to me. I was able to say, okay, well, let me make my own decision at the, you know, sweet age of 10 or 11, and, and go forward and pick out what I wanted. Thankfully, I had a father who was very supportive of that stuff and would take me to the underground places to where I can go find an Impaled Nazarene CD, or, you know, go back and start buying, you know, Death Crush and all the other Mayhem stuff, and you know, amass that library. But Lords of Chaos, I do feel, does a disservice to Varg in painting this really obscure character that's trying so hard. And I say that because I don't believe that to be true, because I think Varg did have an honest natural talent that he showed off in Burzum. So I don't think the jealousy and all that other nonsense was really, and that goes into the, you know, lies and whatnot. We don't know. None of us know. We weren't there. And unfortunately, so much time has passed now. I'm sure the guys that were a part of it don't remember either. You know, it's just been so long. In the end, I think what Åkerlund does with the film, his camera work is fantastic. I do like what he does. I like when he plays around with the fisheye lens and lets the guys like run wild through the tunnels and things like that when they're running from the cops. He's allowed to play, and in turn also let the almost the childlike sense from these characters flourish in these settings, and I enjoy that about the film. Do I think majority of it is BS? Absolutely. And again, like going back to the scene you mentioned where Euronymous is at home laying, you know, with his feet, you know, up on his dad's lap and whatnot, that's juxtaposed against dead Pella at home preparing his suicide. So you're seeing these sweet images, and then that's where the film starts to turn. And as it makes its turn and goes darker, I mean, it's very noticeable, and that's what I found captivating about it. And it drew me in and kept me there. I still, you know, didn't like the way they painted Varg, but at the same time, Åkerlund managed to capture a moment on film that is truly haunting, because that Euronymous murder that fucked me up for days. The first time I saw this movie, I think I watched it 3 or 4 times in rapid succession, and I remember not being able to sleep. I mean, literally just being up that night and having these images in my head of, you know, this horrific stabbing. What was it? He stabbed something like 23 times or something. That's not a self-defense. Those aren't self-defense wounds. I'm sorry. You know,
it was 2 in the head, 5
exactly.
in the throat, and then the rest in the back.
Bingo. So I mean,
yeah, defense.
Exactly. So I mean, this film finds a way to paint the story and also leave you with enough haunting imagery to where, again, here we are on this podcast talking about, you know, having its elements of horror. And I think, Missy, this is a perfect choice, and I love the film. I still listen to black metal to this day. You know, in fact, Dark Throne put out a new album back in April. Still sounds like old Dark Throne. They're kind of like
so
the ACDC of black metal. You know, they've managed to continually put out the same thing over and over. And you know, if that's what you're into, it's still there. It's still a thing. It's still a scene. There's still a lot of talent in it, and I think it's quite a beautiful genre, in my opinion. And you know, this film, it's quality work. I personally still like Until the Light Takes Us, more so just because of the beautiful atmosphere that they put in there, the music, the textures, everything in that documentary is fantastic. And I could watch that one anytime. But I've gone on long enough. Please, somebody else jump in.
I'll go ahead and jump in. I was just thinking about the moments of the deaths in that. I can watch a lot of horror movies. I can kind of deal with quite a bit. The way that Jonas captivated the suicide, I can't watch. I can watch a lot. I can deal with a lot. But when I mean, these were all practical effects. I listened to the interviews and stuff, but the digging and the sounds and just it was just I can't watch them. And I can watch a lot, but those scenes haunted me. Like the way you said, you were like, dude, it will stay with you. And the way Jonas somehow captured that, where you can watch horror movies and go, that was a fun kill. That was fun to watch. But
Yeah.
the way he translated it into, this isn't okay. This is not okay. This is a guy killing himself in his own room. This is some guy vengefully killing, someone who was his friend or who was a colleague or who was whatever. Like it was, and even the stabbing of the guy in the park. It was just
Yeah.
like,
It's brutal.
and what killed me most was when Euronymous was getting stabbed. He was like pleading. He's like, dude, stop stabbing me. Stop hurting me. Like, can we just, like, you don't see that in a lot of movies where they're almost pleading with the killer, where it's like, look, what do we got to do to make this stop? You're killing me. You're hurting me. I'm bleeding. I'm about to die. And like, let's just talk this out. Let's do something about this. And it was just like, it was heartbreaking. Like, it was really heart-wrenching to see that. So did anybody else really like,
Well, and it not only does it look real, but we know that it's based off of
of
true
course,
things that happened.
right.
So whenever it's rooted in the real world, it hits differently.
Yo, for real. Yeah, for real.
But I mean, all the violence in this movie, it's extremely visceral when it wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but honestly, all the and it's insinuated. You don't even really see it. The one that bothers me the most is the cat. The
Oh,
thing with
yeah.
hunting the cat,
Oh my God,
that
yeah.
bothers me. The other stuff, while it's definitely haunting, I'm looking at it going, the the practical effects are fantastic, but the hunting the cats bothered me a lot, and they don't even show it.
Yeah.
The suicide is extra terrible too. I think knowing his background more and how sad that guy really was and depressed. And if you listen to his actual lyrics, or if you listen to like his previous band Morbid,
Mm-hmm.
it was such like a tortured artist. And so watching that scene and knowing too that became like the cover of one of their bootleg albums.
Yeah.
It,
Oh,
like
Dawn of the Blackhearts.
Dawn of the Blackhearts. Yep. What, it's an Italian bootleg, right?
mm-hmm.
I know
I couldn't tell you, but yeah, I just remember it. I had a buddy of mine had it.
I had it. I had to sell it. I felt bad. But just knowing all that, even seeing it was just like heart-wrenching to me. And
he nailed it too. Like he nailed somehow the visual of it, the angle. I mean, obviously he had a lot to work with visually wise because he took pictures and stuff, but it was just
Yeah.
like, oh my God, like you want to get that image out of your head since you sold the cover and and all of a sudden you're just like, oh my God, I'm seeing this from another angle, or I'm seeing this like before my eyes, and you're just like, it was hard to watch. Even the first time, like I was just like, do I watch this? Do I close my eye? Like, what am I supposed to do with this moment? And at one point, because I'm watching it with my phone, I'm like, I just can't. Like, I just can't finish this like moment. Sometimes I'll even fast forward. I was like, I cannot watch that. It's just hard to watch.
yeah, that's definitely a tough one.
Yeah, I think Pella's death ultimately was probably one of the worst tragedies out of all this, because just clearly mental illness that was never addressed, and not having any kind of support system. And at the end of the day, he's almost a poster child for this is what can happen when things like that go unchecked. Would I love to see dead here today? you know, still putting out albums, of course. But I mean, I think because it's, you know, because of the authenticity of what had happened, I think that's what also drives those images home, because it's real. You know, it that happened, and it's horribly unfortunate. And I think that's what makes that suicide scene so impactful. And as again, as a fan of the music and genre, it's one of those things where we know it's coming. How is he
Mm-hmm.
going to execute this? How is he going to make this work, you know, on film? And fuck, he did it. He did it, and again was able to make this jarring imagery that has, you know, bothered me to this day since I first seen it. So, I mean, hats off to Ackerland for that, but at the same time, you know, you can't help but think about this poor kid, and keyword kid. You know, the guy was very young.
It,
You know,
that's
go ahead.
what like infuriates me most about this movie is, okay, we all can kind of figure out that it's a kid, right? But that's not conveyed in the movie, I think, well enough for the general audience to get that. I
Yeah,
feel like these characters have so much more depth to it, and he just kind of, it got glazed over.
yeah. When we talk about Euronymous, I think what Euronymous was, what, 25 when he died, or
Yeah,
when he was killed. You know, still
but
very young.
yeah, and like, but and also they glazed over the fact like Euronymous exploited Dead after he killed himself.
Absolutely,
You know what
absolutely.
I mean? Like,
Like you said
instead
before,
that
they're all
movie,
assholes.
yeah, they're all terrible. I just wanted that movie, I think, to show that more. Like, hey, it wasn't just this guy; they're all kind of shitty.
There's
Here's
a bit of a
why.
there's a bit of a balance where it's like he showed them him exploiting, but at moments he breaks down where it almost like he has a realization where it was like what really happened at that moment, because you see him take like right after it happens he takes pictures, he's messing with stuff or whatever, but in certain flashback moments you see him like crying, he's like messing with stuff, and he he has a breakdown almost over the phone with an interview. And so you again, what I mean, I could see where you're upset, but I think Jonas did find that sort of like there's a moment of balance where emotions kind of come in, where it's like, did that really happen at the time, or was it actually this that happened, where he's actually crying? He realized, oh my god, I'm taking pictures of my dead friend. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can see where you're like, oh, he glazed over, but then there's moments where Jonas kind of goes, well, there's a bit of reality in this where he's crying over the whole situation, and it still affects him to this day. Like how quickly Varg switched subjects, where he's like, oh, hey man, I'm sorry about your dead singer, and then he just kind of was like, kind of, you know, and he's like, and then he hurried up and like changed the subject, you know. But it was one of those moments where it seemed like it still really bothered him, like, you know what I mean?
But I don't know if that is necessarily what happened, or if that's Aukerland just taking, you know, artistic, you know,
It is.
res-
I think it
because
Yeah.
is.
like Euronymous didn't cut his hair either.
Exactly.
No.
So that's my thing, because like another thing that isn't told in that story is there were like, when Euronymous did all that with Dead, it caused a big rift between him and a lot of people. Like there were other, like Necro Butcher from Mayhem didn't talk to him for a long time, and he said, oh, I'd fucking kill Euronymous too. Like, so
He
that's
didn't
what I'm,
rejoin Mayhem till after he was dead. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, exactly. So again, it's just, I wish it was kind of a little bit more shared, the what really was going on. But again, it's a very complex history that would need multiple movies on.
And again, the glorification of some of these characters, and
Yeah.
keyword characters, because when you go back and you look at the documentary, like you look how fun-loving Hellhammer is movie, and then you realize he's also horribly homophobic in the
Mm-hmm.
documentary. And again, praises Faust, who, you know, and for killing the guy in
Yeah.
Lillehammer. And you know, again, Tori, like you said, all these guys are pieces of crap. The other thing, my other complaint about the film, and I don't have many, but it's just kind of like you said, how they glaze over everything. They don't talk about Emperor. They don't talk about all these other bands right there.
They don't talk
know?
about Thorns. They don't talk about.
Yeah, they don't talk about, Faust Projects or any of those other guys. They don't, there's no mention of Dark Throne there at all, even though those guys are right there in the mix of everything. And then I think what this film does is mirrors the scenes with Frost in the documentary where it's romanticized. Because in the documentary, you have Frost, who is, with Satyricon. It comes, a little later. And don't get me wrong, I love Nemesis Divina. I think Nemesis Divina is probably one of the most perfect black metal albums ever. And even some of, Satyricon's later discography, I still like, even, all that as well. But again, it's them playing off the imagery. It's them playing off of the style that was already established and biting off what had already been done, and seeing how the scene is romanticized, and how they I don't know, it's just weird how they take Frost and make him this, what did the artists call him, like a dark angel? I don't know why Frost they chose to put on this pedestal for some reason. And then he went out there and did his performance art, and it's like, again, much like what Gilbey said, I'm just giving you exactly what you want to see. You want shock, here's the shock. You want the gore, you want this, here it is. I'm going to give you all the BS you think that you're getting with this. I'm going to make a buck off of it, and you're going to like what you see, hopefully. It just goes off, exploiting the I feel like the hard work of the guys that have already done, that the guys that already done in the scene. Again, let me get off this again, because I could talk about black metal forever.
Yeah, right. I know. I'm like, ugh.
I think the key moment is during the interview, when like the interviewer actually says, "You're kind of dumb." Yeah, this guy's the dumbest person I've ever spoken to.
Yeah. All the conflicting ideals. So you're a Satanist, you're a pagan, you're a Nazi. It's hilarious at that point.
Well, and again, so I think the thing with Ackerland, because okay, so recently he had a Netflix show come out called Clark, and it's about this famous Norwegian bank robber, and Bill Skarsgård is in it, and it starts with based on truth and lies, and he's this guy Clark is exactly like Euronymous and Varg, and like he's just a big self promoter, so he is able to talk his way out of anything. He talks himself into being famous, basically, right? There's a Netflix show based on him now for being a bank robber. Like it's weird, but I think what Ackerland excels at is I can't tell the whole story. What's the story I want to tell? You know what? I'm just going to take all of this shit and whatever the most interesting shit that I can assemble a 3-act film from, I'm going to do. And I do think, like Justin said, well, like Tori said, he glazes over, but the reason he glazes over a lot of that stuff with Euronymous, like let's just take that, and he glazes over a lot of stuff, but let's take the Euronymous finding dead. He is showing you what Euronymous supposedly wanted you to see. And then later he is giving you that brief. I had actually forgotten about that flashback where he remembers and he's like crying and stuff. I had completely forgotten about that part of the movie, and I've seen it 3 or 4 times. But so he is kind of undermining that facade, but he's like, okay, let's play with this facade that these guys had. And while we're playing in this facade, you really see there's a bunch of fucking dudes that are basically just trying to one up themselves. And it's that thing, like I hung around with some shady people when I was younger, and you get into like, start smoking weed or whatever, and you start like in Cook County,
gateway drug, Sean.
Gateway drug. You start hanging out in forest preserves. And I remember there was like there was a moment in my life where I was like really high and looking around. I'm in a forest preserve at night. And there's guys that are like 40, 50 something years old, and they're fucking scumbags because they're hanging out with a bunch of 16, 17-year-old kids doing drugs.
Sean,
like, that's not okay.
Do you want to show me on the doll?
But the point of this is, like, you get into these situations and it's like, oh, how badass are you? Well, I fucking, vandalized this dude's car. Well, I broke his fucking windows. Well, I fucking set this shit on fire. Well, I fucking stabbed somebody. And
Oh.
it ended up defining their fucking life. And you know, it's just insane. And then, so here's a facade. And then with the reporter and Varg, he undermines it again because not only is the reporter kind of taking the piss out of him, but Varg's, you know, kind of comes off like an idiot and uncertain of himself. It's where his facade starts to slip because he's breaking new ground. He's not really the person he purports to be. He's trying to build this person as he goes, and he's faltering because it's not really there, right? Decades later, he speaks very well. I agree with Anthony. I really enjoy hearing him speak. And he's had a lot of time to practice because clearly when he was younger, he wasn't very good at it, right? He has a lot of time to speak, and he's dialed in who he is, his whole persona. But you know, I mean, I don't know.
You know what's
God,
terrifying about that part of the interview is he's got a pencil in his hand that he's playing with back and forth, and I'm just thinking in my head, get out of the room, get away from him. He has a stabbing weapon.
Yep.
Get out.
Yeah. I mean, Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he get in a couple fights too while he was in jail?
Yeah, but I don't.
Oh no, he couldn't have.
They put him in they put him in segregation for a long time, also to keep him away from everybody, to keep from getting hurt. But yeah, he'd been accosted a couple of times in there. But I from what I gathered, he was also separated for a long period of time as well at his request. There you have it.
I grew up listening to metal, but not black metal. So I didn't know a lot about any of this when I first watched the movie. So and then I watched the documentary after. So to me, I'm just following these characters. I know they're characters based on real people, but I didn't know what, like, some of the things that Anthony and Tori are putting out about who they really were. I'm just going with the character. But I like the way the director kind of shows how different people come into our lives for different reasons. And I mean, it can either be good for us, or in this case, it was like, gasoline on the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Would some of these things have happened if these particular personalities hadn't come together? Because they feed each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, from the depiction of the characters in the movie, I mean, Dead was very depressed, but him and Euronymous had a bond, and they fed that. They fed that particular form of darkness. But then when Dead's gone and Varg moves in, it changes what they're feeding. But you put these two together, and it's going to be destructive. It's going to be bad for everybody. And even it's depicted like with Faust. Would he have killed somebody if he hadn't, made that comment, hey, I wonder what it would feel like if I stabbed someone? And Euronymous is like, you should try it. Like, they all encouraged this bad shit, and it just fed the fire.
Oh, Bard. Frost never killed anybody.
Right. But it was still cool that they depicted it regarding the characters, because people do that all the time.
Yeah,
we don't think about it, but it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if we hadn't met certain people, we wouldn't have taken that path.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's for sure. I mean, I don't think any of this would have happened if Dead was still alive. I don't think we would have had what we had, because that really starts the one-upmanship in a way.
Right.
I mean, not to trivialize the tragedy by any sense, but that and Euronymous' marketing that sets a tone. And like, that's where Hellhammer, I feel like he's the only one at that point with any fucking brains, because he's like, no, right. Fuck you, gone. Which is what you should say if somebody's like, hey, Anthony,
Butcher.
Ray, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm sorry,
Necro Butcher, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. You know, if I come to you, Anthony, say, dude, Ray blew his brains out, and then you're like, oh my God. I'm like, and I took pictures of it, and here's a piece of his skull. You should not be like, oh, cool, thanks.
Well, I would mourn him, but I would also honor him by wearing it, you know. So
Okay.
it's
Fair
Because
enough.
Necro Butcher supposedly said he got a call from Euronymous the day after it happened, and he said, supposedly, quote, "Whoa, Dead did something pretty cool. He blew his head off." And just, I guess, his whole attitude about it really put off Necro Butcher, and that set off a bunch of shit too. But yeah, a lot of people agree, because I was reading interviews and stuff just to like freshen up. Everybody agrees after Dead's suicide, though, Euronymous just did the flip.
Well, he marketed it, right?
Yeah.
He was more of a marketing machine than a human being in that moment, which I think they show to a degree a little bit because he starts to react and then he stops and you almost see the light bulb. He leaves, gets the camera, comes back, takes the pictures. And then we don't see till the flashback that he actually had any emotional, whatever. Um, John?
Yeah. Wow.
Sounds like it's too much.
I know there's like I can't tell whose death I find more disturbing, like all around. But yeah, I think what made it even more is like, how it's just you're following him down the stairs, and the whole time I was just sort of reminded, like, this is like an homage to a video nasty, just the way like they're
Yeah.
having the sort of low angle shot following him up over the spiral staircase. It almost kind of looks like, towards the end of Possession. Um, but and then in the video store, how they have, it's weird because the film, it takes place like late 80s, and Peter Jackson's Brain Dead didn't come out until 92, and yet it's somehow playing in the record
Oh.
store during the late 80s. And I'm just watching and I'm like, oh, okay, all right, well, you gotta watch a bunch of Kiwi zombies, getting killed by, a handheld lawnmower. It's all good.
yeah.
I kick ass for Christ, John.
Yeah. Man, when are we gonna get? We need a release of that. Anyway, that's a totally different topic. Ray, would you eat part of my brain if I blew my brains out?
Don't be a poser, Ray.
Don't be a poser now. I'm kidding, Ray.
Isn't that how mad cow disease was spread? Like a mad human
Kuru?
one?
Mad human disease.
Mad human
Kuru?
It's actually
Man human.
Yeah,
Kuru.
you're thinking of Kuru. Kuru is the one that you can get just a human brain.
And Anthony, I
we
appreciate you. You would wear my skull.
I love you.
drink from it.
Oh, there you go.
Or like a skull bong.
Ooh.
Why is that? Why have those two words never intersected my head before?
Skull bone.
Oh my God.
Ray's losing it.
Wow.
Oh my Lord.
A little bubbler.
Oh geez. I think there's a lot of things that work. I feel like for sure I think you do have like some people with some undiagnosed mental health crises going on in that group. You do have the one-upman shit, but
Like
I
all
think
of
the
them?
other thing is that, and I don't mean to be some kind of asshole and shit on a musical scene, but when when everything's about darkness and everything's about death and everything's about murder and suicide, like, are you surprised that there's actions that you take? It's not like you're going like, unicorns and happiness and love, and then you're being like, oh, how come it's not spreading? Like, this is, I mean, when you're steeping yourself in that and you're striving for it, it makes sense that that's what happens. I wonder, I think the one thing that I think, because The first time I watched, I think I saw Lords of Chaos first, and then I saw Until the Light Takes Us. So I didn't connect that the guy in prison in the documentary was the guy who was the poser in the film. And then I saw it, and then I was watching it again.
Okay.
So I watched the documentary first this time, and then I watched the film, and I was sitting there and I was like, oh shit, that's the same fucking guy. It's a weird casting because that's not how the guy looked. But I was like, oh, that's him. Interesting. And it struck me because I thought to myself, like, because now Varg, like, especially in that interview, well, not now, but when they did the documentary, he's like about, there was something that struck me as like charismatic the first time watching the documentary and hearing him say, like, oh, these churches, they were built on top of our native religion, on top of what we had, and they took it, which is not untrue. Like Christianity spread, and the way that Christianity spread in the world, even all over the world, was that it
shitty.
adapted. Well, it adapted and it took over whatever was there and went,
Yeah.
oh no, that's why there's things like Easter, and that's why there's things like Christmas, and it's because they just went, oh, pagan holiday. Well, we'll do that. No problem. Jesus is the reason for your pagan holiday.
Yep.
And you're like, is it? And you're like, no, it is. Trust me. And like, yeah, and like Mexico has the thing too of like, there's a reason that like some of the way Catholicism is formed in Mexico and South America is because they adapted to what was around the people, what the people knew, and what they understood, and what they believed in. I went, just slide that in and make it work. So there was a certain charismatic quality to him, and like understanding, like, okay, I understand he's upset. I get it. He is right. That is something that Christianity has done. But then then I saw the movie and I connected that it was him. Like I was like, wait, is that an idea he came to later to explain his actions?
Yeah, that's
Or
what
is
I
that
think.
something he always believed in? And I can't help but think it's someone who did something and then went, yeah, that's the fucking reason I did it.
That's exactly what I think.
That's my thought process. That's what I did. And like it just seems like, to go back to the point, like these were young people, these were young men, and like a contest of one-upmanship, a one-upmanship, not shit, one-upmanship, and trying to be the next better badass becomes an
With
explanation of
no
like, no.
prospects.
Yeah.
That was my thought process. This is how I intellectualized this. Did you really?
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, that one guy, I just wanted to stab somebody, or did you want to stab somebody because he came after you and assumed you were a homosexual as well? I felt bad for that guy, I gotta say.
Yeah, I think that's the worst death.
Too, when you're watching Varg in his interviews, you got to understand this guy went to jail at how old? In his early 20s.
Oh yeah.
He's obviously got mental health issues, no prospects.
Well, and by the time they do the documentary, he's been there for like 15 years, hasn't he?
Yeah. You
So,
know, he doesn't know who he is. He went in
yeah.
almost as this like young kid.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, he's a psychopath. He could sit there. He has the time to think about everything and to go back and analyze everything I did.
And come up with a way to intellectualize it. Well, I mean, he's very intellectual. He's very smart, and he's not wrong about Christianity uprooting his native religion. However,
Right.
I do think that came later. I think it was, let's burn this down, and then it's like, well, this is why I did it. Let me tell you, A, B, C,
Well,
D.
yeah.
Here's my PowerPoint presentation. I
And it's
mean,
like, okay, he jumped into like paganism, Odinism. Okay. And then he goes into that Nazism, and you're like that
yeah, the
esoteric
nationalism.
Nazism. And I'm like, oh, bro, yeah, can't, nope.
Yep.
I hate that I love your music. I really do.
I know. I know.
Oh, well, that becomes a whole new other question, doesn't it?
Wow.
That the question, because like, I'm sorry not to interrupt, but that whole, just the concept of like, what do you do about great art created by a terrible person?
Yeah.
I still listen to Gary Glitter, so I don't know. I'm not the best one to answer. I still
Viva
watch
Morrissey.
Rosemary's Babe. I
Yeah.
love
Well, I
Yeah.
Polanski. Like, thing I wish the doc would have conveyed is like just Fenriz's personality. They kind of, but Fenriz has been in the genre since the beginning. Like he got into it when he was 16, and the great thing about Fenriz is he's helped out a lot of bands get like a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Brought a lot of underground bands to the attention of the public, and not just black metal. He's really evolved, and if you,
Elevates.
yeah, I would really listen to his interviews. Anything recent, he's fascinating guy, but he really does try to help out the scene with punk, underground, all of that. I love Fenn. He's like a golden retriever. He really is. Like that doc is, I get what the doc's trying to do, so I don't fault it, but he really is like just kind of like this lovable guy who has this like huge music collection, is just a huge fan of all music. Like he's got a fucking Manila Road tattoo on him. Like,
Well, you know what? One of my favorite moments in that whole documentary, the second time watching, is when he's in that art gallery, and
Yeah.
it's the picture of fuck, what's his name? That actor.
Mickey
And
Rourke.
one version, yes, Mickey Rourke, and one version is just regular Mickey Rourke in a picture, and then the next one's like Black Metal Ricky Rourke, and it says Black Metal Mickey Rourke, and it's got like the corpse paint and the tattoos and everything
oh,
added to him, and he goes, I guess that's all you need. I mean, just the fucking corpse paint, and you're done. But I thought it was so genius that this guy who like is part of that scene looked at it and even was like, oh, I guess that's
yikes.
everything it is, isn't it? Fuck. Like it was like a weird like a moment of realization for him, and he has some of the best moments in the documentary. Like he just feels the most in tune and like honest about what this is, which is music
Yeah.
to him, and everything else just feels like kind of bullshit. And like he's like he
It
just kind of
is.
shakes his head at it and is like, what a shame. Like it just feels
He's
like wasted opportunity to him.
he's the most metal to me because he just doesn't give a fuck and he does what he wants. And he's
Yeah.
like, I listen to ABBA, I listen to this, I don't care. He's a mailman, and he'll tell you, like, yeah, I got a regular job. I'm a mailman. I work for the he works for fucking Norway pretty much. And
Nice.
people comment like he's just got plain IKEA furniture. He's just a cool dude living his life with his wife. Just happens to be like the record keeper of black metal. And I love him.
To me, he wins because
He
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
there's that point where you just are like, oh, you know what? You stab this guy, you beat me. You can take that title. I'm going to go be a postman, make a living wage, record my music, be who I want to be. You can be this person that you've constructed this whole facade.
Yep.
I
Still
mean, but
record to this day.
and like I feel like a lot of the pissing contests and the way that they're looking at their lives at that point, it's so juvenile in a way. It reminds me of that like teenage, like, I'll kill myself, and then at my funeral I'll laugh when they're all crying over. It's like, no, you won't. You'll be dead, dickhead. Like that's not
Well,
how
it
it
didn't
works,
stop
right?
me from saying it. So there.
Yeah. It
Really,
is
they win.
fascinating. One of the things about the book Lords of Chaos where it really brought me dark, it goes into like even
All
in the like
sorts of shit.
well, like the Columbine kids and all these like super dark, like there were offshoots of a lot of, and because it is all these kids that get picked on, right? And they're marginalized and whatnot, and they don't have prospects. And so I mean, now we see it in this insane state because of the internet, right? So you got your incels and whatever, and you can
Mhm.
organize like I live in Norway, I live in Alabama, I live in Ohio, and we can all go shoot our classrooms or whatever. It gets into like I forget who it was had this plot to like go to Disneyland, and then go in and then go into where the cast is, or Disney World, I think the Florida, kill people that were working in the costumes as the characters, and then done the costume, go out and like kill and maim people. I mean, I was like, that is one of the craziest fucking things I have ever heard. And as much as
Mhm.
I would almost rather die than go to Disney World or Disneyland, like that is fuck. I mean, that is just so fucked up. And so they are, I mean, essentially, this is terrorism we're talking about. This,
Mhm.
and I don't know. I mean, there's a fictional, there's a piece of horror fiction. David Peake, book is called Corpse Paint. It's one of my favorite books, and it's he basically takes what's his name from Knockmistium and uses him and some of these other characters as like the template for his main character, and then brings it to this level where it's like it does he gets into this like compound where they're recording, and it's like, no, we have armed weapons, we're going to go into these towns and just start killing people. It's fucking nuts. But I remember in such a tight burst, I like saw Lords of Chaos, read the book, watched Until the Light Takes Us, read Corpse Paint, and then like did all this. There's a bunch of other supplemental stuff on YouTube that you can follow. There's a couple other docs I watched. I don't remember what they are. Have to find them. Now there's a lot more, but it is fertile ground for just it's fascinating and terrifying.
It is. I just wish the book Lords of Chaos too. I wish the book would go into more of said background of these musicians. Like, okay, why are they like this?
Right.
One
Because
character that I would be very curious to know more about is the character of Anne Morant. Why, like,
why did they write
is
her in?
well, is there anything more about her? Did she
Wait,
go
is
on to
that the Sky
become,
Ferreira
She,
character?
yeah, did she go on
Yeah.
to
Okay.
become like actually become like a photo, like what became
Is she a real
of her?
person or was that a
she's not a
device?
real.
No,
That's
she's
just for
not
the
real.
movie. No, she
Yeah,
was
I was
just
like,
for the. That's Jonas.
okay, all
Yeah,
right,
that's
well,
what I
that's
thought.
I guess I'm appreciative of the fact that as well that they didn't try to give even the characters that are people that are Scandinavian, like Walter Skarsgård, like they didn't have them put on fake Norwegian and Swedish accents.
Yeah.
Mhm. Sound like a Swedish chef from the Muppets.
There you go. There it is.
Singing black metal.
I would say that Jonas, I like that he kind of has that history because he was the drummer for Bathory. And then he also directed his first directorial debut was, I mean, not the movie Spun, but he made the music video. Is it Candlemass by oh my gosh, the band was Candlemass, Bewitched. If you can find that music video, it's so cheesy and so much fun to watch because it's like it's well done together, but it has that sort of like 80s metal cheesiness to it. So I encourage you guys go look it up. It's Candlemass and it's called Bewitched. And it was he was so involved in the sort of black metal world that he's like, oh, I just want to start directing and editing since I'm not like a drummer for Bathory anymore. So he's just started doing filmmaking, and that was his first like project was to make a music video for Candlemass, and a song's called
Interesting.
Bewitched. Yeah, check it out. It's hilarious. So
Hmm. He was a drummer for Bathory.
I
he
I
didn't
was
know
call
that.
bullshit. I call bullshit on that.
I'm
No.
just doing my research on this one. I know he's said in
No,
it.
I know.
He was right at the beginning. He was the drummer, and then he was like, "Oh, he started getting into video editing and filmmaking and all that other stuff." And if I can recommend one more thing, check out his Rammstein's Paris concert. It is so well edited and so well put together. I know he's great with music videos, but that entire concert it's so beautiful to watch the way he did it. I strongly recommend it. I think it's on Prime, but with him and Rammstein, it's just pure magic. So
Is this the Rammstein tour video where, because there's
He's
one I remember I
not
rented
the
it
one
on
where he
Prime.
fucks him.
No, there's one where they don't put it in English and there's no subtitles. So I like rented it. I'm watching. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And I just pictured them laughing at me like,
Was that
no,
live out
we're
Berlin?
not
Might have been
learn
live
to
out
speak
Berlin.
German.
That's the true horror of it, is you felt like an outcast. You didn't know what they were saying. See?
I didn't really care what they were saying.
no,
I'm just
Yeah,
like,
Jonas Ackerman and Bathory. That's gonna I'm gonna have to look into that
yeah,
now.
look into it.
That's like Moby singing for Flipper, you know what I mean?
I
Did you ever hear that? No, you guys.
no, now
Moby
that
supposedly was
is
a singer for
definitely that
Flipper.
cannot be true.
Fucking Moby.
But also, so that is like on his Wikipedia, but also, like for instance, when I moved to San Pedro, I met literally in the first 6 months I lived in San Pedro in 2006, I had
Mike
to have
Watt.
met 7 or 8 people that were like, I was in suicidal tendencies.
Oh
And they
God.
probably were when they were, 17 in the garage, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, or like Justin Broderick from Godflesh and a million other bands who I adore, like he's the original drummer, I think, for Napalm Death. I don't, you can't go buy a Napalm Death album with Justin Broderick on it. I'm pretty sure that like you have to get like, I think it's like demo stuff that's like, I don't even know if it was ever in print. But, I mean, it's just the growing pains of being in a scene and being in a band and maybe being in it before it became anything.
It's like Josh Brolin was in RKL, but then again, like so was like half of Santa Barbara during that
Oh, so
time.
okay. I
I
didn't
heard
know that.
Chevy Chase was in Steely Dan at one point too. Like
God.
when they first got together,
Fuck
yeah.
yeah.
Oh
Right?
my God. Wow.
Don't get me started on Steely Dan. I love them way too much.
Fuck yeah,
Oh
dude.
man, right?
Asia. Goddamn right. Oh. Um, Although, but by that point, it's not even Fagan and what's his name. Like they're just writing everything and then hiring studio musicians to play it because they're like, I can't play that good. So just hire guys that can. So, I mean, um,
Play
Missy,
for me.
like for me. Talk more. I mean, so you picked it. So I feel like you probably had bullet points we haven't gotten to yet.
I mean, I think we've hit most of them actually.
Okay. I want to be sure because again, this is very large and amorphous, and I don't exactly know how to, how we keep this concise and well, it doesn't have to be concise, but you know what I mean.
It's like a Roman Senate meeting. Look at this.
Yeah.
Amorphous was another good black metal band. Tale of a Thousand Lakes. That was a great record. I got a question for you guys. For those of us that do like black metal, are there any groups or music that you like to this day, or groups
Blue
that
Dust
Hell
North.
yeah. Blue House North. I listen to them all. I love Dissection. I love Emperor. I love Burzum. There's a new band out of San Diego named Mammon. They're doing some awesome black metal.
Very good.
Highly, highly recommend them. Can't wait for the full length to come out.
I'm more into dungeon synth. Like I'm a big synthesizer guy. So I got synthesizers, but dungeon synth is kind of my way to go just because I really like that.
Mortis.
Yes, definitely Mortis. Yeah.
Nice.
Have you listened then to like any of the Burzum dungeon synth?
Of course, yeah, of course, yeah.
Like Dottie Bowder. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've done a lot
awesome.
of digging. Believe me, me and Sean were he was mentioned something about dungeon synth, and I'm like, I just went down that spiral where I went from Bandcamp to finding stuff on YouTube and these compilations and stuff, and it's just like I just dug deep, and that's what I do with music. I just keep digging until I'm like, okay, I got to kind of dig my way out of here and find something else to listen to. But dungeon synth.
You ever listen to Warning from Germany? Electric Eyes. They're sick. You should listen to them.
I'll write it down. Warning. Okay.
Yeah, I think they only have one song on Apple right now. But I think you can get their stuff fairly cheap off Discogs, but it's going to be shipped overseas.
There's a label, I forget where it's from. called Death Prayer Records, and so there's a band called Calderum, and they are black metal, and that they have that grimy fucking black metals. It's not like polished. There's polished stuff I like too, but and dungeon synth, and it mixes very well. I feel like I want on an album. It's not just like here's our our black metal album, and here's our dungeons. It mixes, and then there's another one called Lamp of Murmur on the same that really cool band.
There's a man, I can't think of it. It's like Bonehead Productions. I believe they're based out of LA, but they do a lot of indigenous black metal, I guess you would say.
Nice.
So there's God damn, there's a band I love. It's the Volon, Volahn. They, I believe, are from LA, but they are all from, I think it's El Salvador, but somewhere in Central America, and it's like cosmic black metal. It's so good.
Ooh, wait,
I
what is the
highly
name of this
recommend it.
band?
Volon,
VLLAHN. Is that right?
Got it.
Volahn.
It didn't come up on Apple Music, but I found it on was it the Metal Archives site, Encyclopedia Metallum.
That's the website I have here.
You could go down a nice rabbit hole with like those
Okay.
bands. There's Blue
Nice.
Hummingbird on the left, Arismenda. These bands are amazing, and they play a lot around here, but I feel like they don't get enough credit.
That's cool. That's oh man, wow.
Highly recommend Volon.
It's a deep genre, and I mean, and also like I tend to like the more like the thing that really threw me into black metal, and they even would probably contest me call because they're like we want nothing to do with black metal, but Bluthaus Nord, Tori, I'll never forget when you played me the work which that transforms God, and that second disc, I forget the name, it's got a long name, but emanations of blah blah blah. That just floored me, and that opened me up to like Over and all. Like there are no boundaries, right? Like that's what I like so much about it. Just mutates and mutates and mutates and
Exactly.
indigenous black braid. Holy fuck, is black braid awesome? Like Native American black metal. Oh God, so fucking good.
Yeah, and there's some great black metal bands like out of Mexico. There's like Funeral Moon. Uh, I love, well, it's more depressive black metal, but there's Zoster. I love Shining. Joyless is kind of on that cusp where they're almost black metal, but then she kind of sings normal. Yeah, it goes really far.
Dude, Merker, right? Like where it's like she totally balances. I'll never forget that first Merker album where I was like, holy fuck, this is like Miranda Sex Garden but black metal. And then like she's done the one album is all traditional folk stuff and there's no metal on it. And then the next record is completely balls to the wall. Like it is exciting. And it I don't think it starts with second wave, right? I mean, I do think that Bathory and
Celtic Hellhammer, Merciful Fate, all
yeah,
those
Merciful
dudes.
Fate, yeah. Yeah.
Venom.
Yes, Venom. That was the one I was looking for. Man, it's and it's crazy. Ghost came out of that scene, even though they never were black metal. But I know I still fucking love them.
I like
But
those. I'm sorry. I
I
can't
love,
help
dude,
like
I love
First
them. I
album,
mean,
that's it.
the
After
first
that, they
album's
like
great. I mean, but that's the thing where it's like I like it and then it progressed. Their second album was just it was so catchy. I hated how catchy it was, and I like it. And I'll still listen to oh my god, I'm losing the name of it. Um Never mind. I'm not worried about it. Secular Haze.
they
I'll listen to that one and I'm just like boom, bum, bum, dun, dun. It's just so waltzy, and I'm like, I don't
yeah,
know, dude. It just I can't help but like it. But I'm all over the place. Like I'm all over the map. I'm one extreme to the next, and I'll even meet somewhere in between. So you know, I appreciate it all.
They sold their souls to Hot Topic, and I can't.
Hey, I used to work
Yeah,
there.
but you,
I
dude,
know I didn't. Yeah, no.
there's many bands whose stuff is sold at
Oh
Hot
yeah.
Topic that it would totally and it's not really their fucking fault, right? You know, I mean, at this
Don't
point,
get me started on Twin Temple either, you know.
Oh,
oh
Sold
I
their
love
souls to
Twin
Hot Topic.
Temple. I love Twin
yeah.
Temple.
Is Twin Temple something that they sell at Hot Topic now?
No, I've looked. It's too risque. I mean, it's all
Uh,
that sort of witch satanica type stuff. I've looked. You can never find it
no,
there.
they
It's on their
but
website.
they sold their rights to another clothing company, like a mass-produced clothing company, and I'm
Oh,
like,
okay.
oh, yep.
Well, but here's the other
Money
thing.
machine.
In 2024, it's harder to say to a musician like you shouldn't do that because it detracts from your cred because they don't make money very, like Matt Pike from High and Fire still is a
That's
bartender.
true.
I mean, there's less and less ways. And, I still buy physical music and I'll even occasionally buy digital stuff, right? Like on Bandcamp or whatever. Uh, but I stream a lot of shit. And we all know Spotify and Apple,
Oh, they screw you.
they're not making a lot of money from that shit. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, so,
Mm-hmm.
I got all
I
my music
mean,
on there too, and it's like I'll get pennies.
yeah,
Like I'll
exactly. That's,
put stuff like on social media just to get a couple extra cents, just to be like, okay, it's I'll do it just for fun, and it just adds up. Where it's like, here's 2 cents into your little piggy bank, and it's like, oh. So believe me,
yep.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thanks.
No, I get
Wow.
if it's like make money and you're still doing your art, just keep doing it. I mean, yeah, you may have sold your soul, but you know, it is what it is,
Well, you
So
sell your soul to your passion. That's how I look at it. Whatever your passion is, if it's music, if it's whatever, sell your
yeah,
soul to that. And then, I mean, do what you got to do. I don't know.
yeah.
Be like Seth Putnam and do blow off a hooker's ass.
Hey, Missy.
Hey, I have a question for Tori and Anthony. Because there's so many bands to choose from. Like if you don't have much background and you wanted to dig into more, where would you start?
Just black metal in general.
Mm-hmm.
Bathory, self-title.
Okay.
Oh God, Missy, I'm gonna give you so many right now.
Go for
that
it.
Eclipse in the Night Side Eclipse from Emperor. Shit, that was one of the ones that I
Okay.
fell
Wait,
in love
Dark
Emperor's
with.
the
Throne.
band?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Emperor.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
actually the band Faust was in, so he was the drummer.
Okay.
Dark Throne's Transylvania Hunger is one of my favorites. Nemesis Divina by Satyricon.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Even as far as like newer stuff, Sean, do you remember the Great Old Ones?
Yeah.
That they had an album come out a couple of years ago, and it's basically like Lovecraftian black metal. It's fucking outstanding. It's one of the greatest things I've heard in years.
Okay.
And then go ahead.
1349's Hellfire.
Yeah.
Or anything off of no. Okay, I take that back. 1349 Revelations Under the Black Flame. That's my oh God. I love that album. It's
Okay.
God, there's so many.
There's too many. Yeah. I would have to send you.
I'm like, I'm gonna overwhelm you right now because I'm overwhelming
Okay.
Yeah.
Feel free to think
There's
about
so
it and send list later.
Honestly, Missy, any of the first like 3 Burzum
Yeah.
are
I don't know how to say
Philosophem.
Yeah.
That one
Oh,
to me.
you guys, fun fact, you know what Until the Light Takes Us is from, right?
No.
It's a play off of a Burzum album, but it's If the Light Takes Us. And that was
Oh.
the album he put out right before he went into jail. Crazy.
So,
Yeah,
okay.
Missy, I'll send you a list. Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. Final thoughts, anyone?
Yeah, thank you for introducing me to this film. I enjoyed Missy. I really enjoyed watching it. It's not perfect. I think Toy and Anthony definitely have some valid points, and I have some lingering questions. Um, it's not black metal, but for sure, after watching the film, I just immediately wanted to start listening to Ed Guy.
Yes.
No, I mean, I can't really think of anything.
Okay.
I mean, you guys really gave me, I mean, dude, I'm sitting here writing notes on top of my
I
notes,
know.
Right,
I
me
know.
too.
all these bands
I'm
and stuff like
sorry.
that. I really know it's perfect because it's like I give me anything, everything, all the things. Like I love it. So it's you've showed me so much because I mean I love black metal. I like all metal, and so it's like anytime I rewatch the documentary, it shows me something new, and then all of a sudden I'm going on to Wikipedia and all these other pages and stuff, like rediscovering things and rereading things and looking up other bands and projects and stuff, and it's like coming together for this podcast. It's like we got everybody. We got Ray, who's just like, hey, I'm here. I mean, he made so many intellectual points that it was just like it just blew my mind. And he's just like, okay, I mean, I like the music, but whatever. And it's just like, and then you got two black metal heads that are just like, and it was just such a beautiful array of people coming together. And then just, and I've been promoting this on my podcast too, saying, hey, I'm going to be on the Horror Vision podcast, blah, 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 blah. And I've already had a few people go, let me know when that's out. Like they're really excited about hearing about this whole thing. So, I mean, it's, I don't know. It's just a beautiful moment. That's all I can say. So
It's
thank you.
community. We find community in these things. That's
Oh,
why
of
we
course.
do it. You
Oh, we
know?
need it. Exactly. No, I agree.
Oh, I had something for you guys. Look, it's a little heart.
My final thoughts on Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park is that
I hate you so much.
no, I gotta say, this Ackerland's film again. Whether or not you're a fan of the genre of black metal or not, he hits all the right notes and has made a very solid impact, both positive and negative. So I think it's up to our listeners to make their own choice and go out and watch that. But whether or not you are into a more fictional side of it, maybe I would say go and watch the real stuff. Go watch Until the Light Takes Us. I think that has a lot more to offer than the other film. That documentary again is just one of those things. It's like comfort food for me. I can throw it on any time and watch it. And as soon as I heard we were doing double feature for this, I was like, excellent, perfect excuse to sit down and watch these again, especially Until the Light Takes Us, just because I love it so much. But that's one of those ones that I definitely implore our listeners to go out and give a chance, just because it's an interesting bit of music history that so few people know about. It just makes it that much more interesting. But I mean, even for fans of it's definitely a delight. So please go and watch both of these films.
And I would say start with the documentary and then I start with Until the Light Takes Us and then watch Lords of Chaos. I did it the opposite previously, but I did that this week. I did Tuesday the documentary, Wednesday the film, and I just think that's especially for somebody that doesn't know a lot about this stuff. I think that's the way to go. I really think that is the optimum introduction.
Well, I think it depends on how the person connects with stories though. Because if I had seen the documentary first without any background, I mean, while it's interesting, I don't know if it would have been enough to compel me to watch the movie. And I mean, I'm someone who connects with characters, and if you give me a well-written story with characters that give you stuff to think about, it's going to get my attention more.
Right. Good point. Very good point.
And I think the documentary is excellent, but I'm not real familiar with these bands, so it wouldn't have, I don't know that it would have made as much of an impact as the movie does, because it is cinematic, it's well filmed, it's, you know, it does have these fantastic practical effects and great performances. So I mean, it is a good movie. I mean, I get
Yeah.
that there are things they changed that for, you know, people who were already fans and know these bands much better, like, I get that. It pisses us off when they fuck up stuff we love. But
Yeah.
so I mean, I think it depends. You'll know how you connect with movies. I connect more with characters than history.
Well said. Any other final thoughts before we go? Oh, go ahead. Go, please.
The guy that directed Madonna's Ray of Light directed Lords of Chaos.
Yeah, I know.
Just
And
throwing
yeah,
that
a
out
bunch of
there.
YouTube videos too, right? Like,
That's funny.
Beautiful day.
I'm just being a hater. I'm sorry.
No,
you do what you got to do
you
to
have a
pay the
right to
bills,
your
I guess.
opinion.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And it's a valid opinion. It's not like you were just, oh, I hate it just because, you know, it's stupid or whatever. You have valid
He's
reasons
a
to back it
doo-doo
up.
head.
Right.
Nice.
It's
I hate it because he's a doo-doo head.
he
Oh, man.
looks stupid. No, yeah, just watch the documentary. It's such a unique piece of history that was just so like indicative of that time and is just made these legends and martyrs out of these
Yeah.
people, and just this crazy history and kind of how spoken history gets manipulated in the end. I would say just stick with Until the Light Takes Us and watch some Fenris. Watch Fenris getting interviewed by the German guy on YouTube. That's all I got to say.
Okay.
Anthony, do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Rock and Roll Gas Station. Yeah.
Ray?
I guess the one thing I was going to say is from a cinephile's perspective, because that's how I watch these. The first time I saw them was simply having heard about them and having no context or background in black metal. I watched them both separately as just a film fan and somebody who got told, oh yeah, these are fantastic. This is a great documentary. It's super entertaining, and this is a great film. Like it's just very well done. And maybe it was you, maybe it was someone else. I think I heard about it before you even told me about it, and then you told me about it. I just think they're entertaining as fuck. Like, having any background in the music, I thought they were really interesting and just very well done. Like, the documentary is really fascinating and compelling, and it isn't boring. Like, there's some docs that you're just sitting there and you're just like, oh, geez, you get to your point or make your point. And I think the way that they film it and the way that they have decided these are the three people we're going to focus on, and almost make it about them commenting on each other as they're going without actually directly saying anything about each other is interesting. And then you have the film, and like, I liked the film the first time I saw it, and I thought a big portion of it was Rory Culkin. I think he's fantastic. Like, as time has passed, I've realized that the Culkin brothers, the ones that are still out there, are guys to watch because they're fucking fantastic on screen. They just perform and they get the job done, and they're magnetic. Like, you watch them and you enjoy their performances. Like, it didn't strike me until the second viewing that, like, how much Rodimus is kind of douchey. And how much he kept like, oh yeah, that's what you got to do. And then when someone be like, yeah, man, I went to that church, and he's like, that's right, man, that's what we fucking did. And I'm like, what is it? What is he
Yeah.
with this we shit? Like every time something would happen, he'd be like that. He would say we shit, and I was like, motherfucker, you weren't there, and then you take credit for it because you came up with the idea. That's like saying, hey man, you should have a space shuttle, and you're the guy that fucking talked to what's his name from Tesla when he was 5, and then like he's building fucking shuttles and putting them into space now, and that guy probably you're the guy who talked to him at 5, walking around going, hey, I told him to build space shuttles. That was my idea. Like you didn't. You were just what?
Yeah.
Come on. But there's just something about how he acts and how well he does. Like just the douchiness didn't come out the first time, and then the second time watching it, I was like, this character is douchey as fuck. But man, it's entertaining as hell, and like just as like a film goer, just as like a person who loves film, like they're just entertaining. They're just very well done. I've watched some other docs where I'm just like, oh god, you're losing me. You're losing your point. You're wandering. And I think that this feels the documentary feels very focused and knows where it's going. And the film, I don't know. I feel like you have to expect that anytime they make a biopic, that there's going to be bullshit or there's going to be shit that is made up. Like, I remember people being like, were very much fans of Queen when the film came out, and we're like, hey, that's not how that happened. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but unfortunately, you put it on film, and it's a more compelling story if it happens that way. Right. Is it the truth? No, it's not. But more compelling as a film. One of the best examples in a way that is ridiculous, but it's emblematic of like how things get transferred to film is the film that Pee-wee watches at the end of Pee-wee's Big Adventure that is supposedly his adventure. And you're like, what? That's not like he's a fucking spy. And like they steal his motorcycle, and Dottie's all sexy, like, and they call him PW, and you're like, what? That's not how. And Pee-wee's walking around the theater so proud because it's him on screen, but it's not. Yeah. But that's biopic. That is Hollywood's version of the biopic. Of course, it's sensationalized. Of course, the person always looks better than they actually are. So you have to expect that. You have to realize that it's bullshit, and like, of course, they're always going to try and make the person look better or more attractive, at least, because it's Hollywood trying to sell something to the audience. And is it accurate for the history? Wow. And that's an unfortunate side effect of it being made into a film. But, sometimes you have to sacrifice that for entertainment. But realize going into anything you're going to watch like that, there's going to be fiction. There's going to be lies. So.
It tells you right at the beginning, based on truth, lies, and what actually happened. So, okay. So everyone listening, go check out John's Moving Histories podcast and his This Movie Will Save My Life podcast. Check out Justin's podcast, Trailer Punk podcast, and also your music. And I still say, we're almost halfway through the year. The House with Dead Leaves is still in my top 10 of the year.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
There is a deluge of good music this year. I mean, it's a good problem to have. I'm drowning in it. So, but yeah.
You and a lot of people have said that, and it's really, it says a lot just because it's like it was a personal project, and you go from one project to another, and you're kind of like, okay, music, and then I'm doing this podcasting thing, and everybody keeps reminding me, dude, you have a great album. Like, you should, and I'm just like, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So this is the Horror Vision presents Elements of Horror, and we will be back with another episode of the Horror Vision soon. But until then, true Norwegian black metal or bust.
A pandemic of violence floods the streets of major cities as cases of the media-dubbed murder virus, MV20, soar, causing those infected to go on killing sprees. Caught in the middle, police detective Angela Miller finds her only trustworthy ally in the self-proclaimed psychic PI, Gerald Henry. As the two try to navigate the violence, they are drawn into New Age guru Abramelin Harvest's plot to heal the planet. Harvest's missive?
The world is sick, and humanity is the infection.
The cure? Murder. From the twisted mind of Sean C. Baker, author of A Collection of Desires and Shadowplay Book 1, Kim and Jesse, comes his most vicious novel yet, Murder Virus. Available where books are sold.